Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Mills coming at you for the RBLR Sports podcast. I am here tonight recording on a Monday because, Carlos, there is actually a lot to get to. Let's just jump into it. In fact, well, we should start the way we usually do. But there are two games to review, one game to preview, and there's actually some interesting news that just dropped before we started recording. Part of the reason why we're recording, I guess, it makes sense that we should go after this news. Carlos, you threw this in there, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. But it involves the Rays, their ownership, which of course is the same ownership as the Rowdies, and ultimately maybe some long-term implications. Let's get into that. But Carlos, how are you doing tonight?
I am well. You mentioned some interesting news happening on the Rays front. We'll talk about that later on, obviously, like you said, because it affects the Rowdies. They just wrapped up their last home game in the borrowed stadium that belongs to the Yankees by Raymond James, George Steinbrenner Field over there. So lots of stuff happening on that end. I'm well, James. It's a nice day this evening here in Arlington, Virginia. I'm excited because my favorite team in the world comes to play a soccer game this weekend just down the road in Loudoun County. Obviously referring to the Tampa Bay Rowdies playing against this Loudoun United squad who's playing good soccer, James, this season. We've talked about them a lot. I've always said this is their year, and it seems like this year actually did become their year. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about that matchup later on as well, so stick around. But you mentioned we have two games to talk about before that. A midweek Wednesday game with what I feel is a grossly overreported attendance on the part of Birmingham Legion. I'll talk about that later on as well. A beautiful, beautiful win over there. And of course, a roller coaster of emotions against North Carolina FC this past week. And overall, I would say, James, a good looking week for the Rowdies, which means I feel pretty good as well. Like any sane person, my mood is dictated by how my team is doing. So that's where I am, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. There's a lot to go on here, and we're going to have to get into all of these things. But I don't know. It's going to be we've got that to talk about. Plus, there are the implications of the two games and the fact that the playoffs are so close. So there's too much to cover tonight, and we're going to hope to be done with this within an hour, not 7 or 8. But let's hop in at this point. So last week the Rowdies won 4-1 on Wednesday. Did not see that coming personally, I will just say, and then drew 2-2. Particularly disappointing for reasons that we're going to get into later on. If you were there, you saw the late goal that ultimately tied it up. We'll cover both of those, and then we will do a preview of this game coming up on Sunday, on Sunday versus Loudoun United in Virginia, where we should have correspondent Carlos present to do some RBLR coverage. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube or any major podcast platform. And of course, please follow RBLR Sports on Instagrams, on social media, such as Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm very tired. I apologize, everyone. But obviously, by my use of Instagrams, you probably figured that out at this point. Carlos, I will do the quick recap number 1, and I'll turn it over to you for quick recap number 2 before we head into the questions, which we're just going to combine for the two games. So, the starting lineup for the game versus Birmingham: Bill Hamid in net, Thomas Van Kaziel, Robert Castellanos, and Aaron Guillen at the back. A midfield of Juan Asokar, Lawrence Wyke, Danny Crisostomo, and Blake Bodley, and an attacking unit, I guess you could say, of Paul Marie, Rubens Pacius, and Manuel Arteaga. I say an attacking unit because Paul Marie was pretty involved in the attack. I don't know that you could even classify him as a midfielder in certain moments. So, it was just interesting to see. Birmingham scored the first goal in this one, and it went in at halftime 1-0. Our producer Eureka was the on-ground coverage for RBLR that day, and he was among roughly 10 Rowdies fans. I don't know how we got 10 Rowdies fans to a midday game in Birmingham, but we did. And they saw, truly, they saw us come back in the second half and get 4 goals to take this one and get all 3 points and come back home with it. I mean, like, truly, truly one of the crazier performances I think I've seen from the Rowdies all this season, certainly. Possibly over the course of longer than that, just because you have to consider the circumstances. Again, midweek is one thing, it's great, but it's midday. Literally started at 11:30 local time, 12:30 for us, so it wasn't crazy difference for the Rowdies players. But yeah, it just honestly weird stuff. Very good goals. In particular, I had the YouTube highlights pulled up to remind myself of I watched that game as much as I could in the middle of the day. Ultimately, with training at work, I had to rewatch it. So I did the short rewatch with the YouTube highlights today. And the last goal in particular by Luis Alvarez, the game was gone by then, but regardless, incredible goal. And boy, that is one where you can hear the commentator yelling, "Pick that out!" And it was just sublime.
It was a beauty.
Yeah. So that was the topsy-turvy 4-1 win away to Birmingham Legion on Wednesday. Carlos, we did have a second game on Saturday though, and that one was at home against a more annoying opponent, let's say, in North Carolina.
Yeah. Interestingly, the first time that North Carolina FC is back in Al Lang Stadium playing a game against the Rowdies since 2020, if you can believe that, with their, self-relegating, I guess we could say, to League One, making their way back to the championship after having their time in NASL as well. I think that being said, despite how annoying they were, it was nice to see them back in Al Lang playing against the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Like you said, though, an unfortunately annoying team who we would come out a bit slow against. The starting lineup was Hamid in net again. You've seen him get the start now for a few games in a row, taking the starting spot from Bondre. He's had his ups and down moments in these first few games for the Rowdies.
Starting to sound like me, Carlos.
Yeah, I'm tired. He's had up and down moments in these first few games for the Rowdies. Made a couple big saves in this one. Wyke moved back to the back line in this second game. You'll notice some rotation here in a second as we go through the starting lineup. Lasso made his way back into the starting lineup as well. Good to see him back from injury. Of course, good to see him getting a start, allowing some guys to get some rest on the bench after what ended up being 3 games in a week, right? Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday game. Guillen made up your other back line member. In front of them in the right wing back slot, you had Sokard. In the middle, Paul Marie, Crisostomo, and of course out left, Blake Bodley. Mendez gets another start here. Actually, I believe his first start. He subbed in against Birmingham. Yeah, Mendez gets his first start here. Plays a good game. We'll talk about him later on as well. He was impressive, to say the least, certainly across both these games. And then again, two people who didn't get any rest in this game were Woobs and Manu Arteaga, who got the start against Birmingham, and of course getting the start here again against North Carolina in the second game of the week. So lots of soccer being played by these boys in the past week. I'm happy that the last 5 weeks of soccer, the last 5 games are spread out across 5 weeks. No more midweek games for these last stretch of the year. James, but that was your starting lineup, allowing guys like Castellanos, Bancaziel to get some rest after a lot of playing time this year. It was a interesting game. Like I said, the Rowdies came out a little slow, but settled in really nicely. It would take maybe a kick in the butt after North Carolina scored that first goal in the 15th minute. It wouldn't be until the 38th minute that Arteaga gets back on the score sheet. That's back-to-back games with goals from him after what, of course, has been a really slow year for him by his standards. Good to see him getting into some form here consistently in back-to-back games. And a really, really nice finish, driven low into the corner, past the North Carolina keeper. Beautiful finish, great assist. Again, Rowdies on the ball a lot in this game. 63% possession here, controlling, creating a lot of chances. It was actually, James, a really good performance based on what I've seen. Had to go back and rewatch this one. Woobs gets a goal in the 82nd minute to go ahead. Rowdies take the lead 2-1. But unfortunately, we've alluded to it a couple times now. A draw that would otherwise, I think, feel pretty good and impressive was maybe feeling a bit more like a loss by the end of the night because of the goal in the 96th minute by Alex Anderson to equalize on one of the last kicks of the game. Rowdies, North Carolina tie 2-2, both splitting the points here. Again, I reemphasize that this would, I think, otherwise feel like a pretty good result. The nature of that last second goal combined with the fact that you really want all the points you can get here on the back end of the year as we fight for that playoff spot makes it feel a bit like a loss, which is fair, especially because now it's back-to-back home games with weird kind of collapses in games where you feel like you should have gotten out of there with 3 points. Of course, alluding to that 3-3 draw just a couple weeks ago as well at home. So takeaways here, James, we'll talk about them in just a second, but I'll leave you to think about one. Lots of goals being scored for the Rowdies across the last few games. If nothing else, that's certainly a positive because that's been an area where we have been lacking for a large portion of the year. Across 3 games, it's 3 goals, 4 goals, and 2 goals here. So 8 goals across 3 games. Not bad. Not bad at all. Of course, you want to be limiting the defensive mistakes. We'll talk about that in a second. James, should we talk about the standings? That might be relevant right now, right?
It might be.
It might be relevant. Of course, up top in the Eastern Conference, nothing's really changed. Your usual up top this year, Louisville City has remained there with 60 points. Charleston Battery, 54 points. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever. We can discount them for the remainder of the season. They're going to finish up top. And that's okay. Loudoun is in 3rd place with 38 points. North Carolina, our opponents from this past weekend, on 37 points in 4th place. I'm going to skip down a bit here because this is where it gets interesting, right? In 7th place, of course, that second to last playoff spot, is Detroit City with 32 points. In 8th place, Rhode Island with 30 points. In 9th place, Indy 11 with 29 points. And of course, in 10th place, your Tampa Bay Rowdies with 26 points. Creating a little distance here against Birmingham Legion with that 4-point gap. But that same 4-point gap is what's separating us and that last playoff spot. 5 games left to play. That's a good amount of points up for grab, 15 to be exact, right? One of those games is against Rhode Island, away in Rhode Island. That game is going to be huge. It's in a couple weeks. We have 2 games before then to take care of. But James, I think the takeaway to think about here is if we take care of business over the next couple weeks and put ourselves in a position to overtake Rhode Island when that match comes, this playoff journey, this playoff push might be in our own hands, which is really nice to think about after everything that's happened this year. Of course, it's going to require putting together a couple wins together here in a row, which we really haven't done all year. We get a win. Yeah. Games, draws maybe, and then another win. We're going to have to string together a couple wins here. But despite everything that's happened, playoff destiny is still in the Rowdies' control, in my opinion. Of course, Indy 11 is between us and Rhode Island. We could talk about this. This is what we're saying. There's so much to talk about here. We can talk about this all night, really. It's going to be a 3-hour long podcast. I'll just mention that Indy 11 is, of course, 3 points in front of us. They have a really, really tough schedule to close out the year. That includes hosting 1st place Western Conference team FC Tulsa, going away to Louisville, then going away to a really solid Pittsburgh squad, hosting this Loudoun team that's solid that we're playing this year. It's going to be a tough run of form, I think, hope for them, for these, especially these next 3 games. So obviously we're hoping for some losses to go their way, but James, that's the takeaway. Playoff destiny very much in the Rowdies' control. But we have to go and snatch it, right? I'll tell you really quickly what's going on out west. FC Tulsa in 1st place with 47 points. Sacramento with 41 points. Neil Collins doing well over there. San Antonio with 36 points. Lexington with 35 points in 4th place. Like we've said many times over the last few weeks, the Western Conference is very, very much up for grabs, especially in that middle portion, especially on that lower end of the playoff positions. Not many points at all separating these teams out west. So keep an eye on the Western Conference as well, because like I said, there's good soccer happening, and they're going to be really, really competitive, fiery games in this last push for the playoffs. Okay, that's the quick quote-unquote recaps out of the way. 2 big games that we have to talk about to one really good result, one result that, like I said, feels like a loss, but still is a really, really important point when you really need every point you can get here on the back end of the year. James, where do we even start with this one? Let's start with the really positives, right? Let's start with the highlights. Big win in Birmingham, right? It was a fun one to watch if you could watch it during your lunch break or maybe it was a slow afternoon. Birmingham scores first. Rowdy's resiliency shows itself again here, and we come back and score 4 goals unanswered. Where do you think – for initial reactions to that game, looking back, maybe you didn't have a chance to watch it during the middle of the workday. Positives to take away out of that game for you, James?
Well, I mean, the biggest positive I think that we can take out of the last, let's say, this would be for both games, not just the one in Birmingham, but the biggest positive that I can take is that the Rowdies offense is really good. It was, I think, a struggle for much of the season to get really good chances regularly, to frequently put players in the positions that we want them to. I mean, if you drop it back on farther, deeper parts of the field, then the passes were not coming off, and we were not getting the buildup that we usually want. All of that stuff has kind of, I don't want to say where we need to be, because this is all related to the playoffs, obviously. And right now we're not in the playoff picture, so we're not where we need to be there. And that means that we're not where we need to be in other positions, because that's what everything is headed toward. So that's one problem. However, at the same time, the Rowdies offense is significantly better. And the other side of things is that it seems to be improving. Now, actually, I should point this out now. Our prediction standings, Carlos is still in third, but did get a point because he predicted a win against Birmingham. He's on 11. I'm on 18 because I failed to predict a win against Birmingham, and Eureka has moved up to 20 in first place. But the point of that is Carlos and Eureka both predicted a win against Birmingham. Maybe that was the best call because Birmingham have recently been struggling. I did not go with that. But ultimately, we were able to smash them, and that's very positive. That builds confidence. It's not just that we can go and get the 3 points. That's really important. But I do think if you can beat a team with 4 goals, whether or not it's Birmingham, who are currently in a bad place, then maybe we'll turn around and we'll get some more goals in games where we otherwise might not have. Confidence, honestly, it really feeds you. It feeds you as an individual. It feeds your team. I really think that is true. And I think that this is going to play some type of role for us. I don't know what in the future, but I do think that it will. So
absolutely.
Yeah, you take that performance and then you take the second performance against North Carolina. North Carolina are a significantly better team than Birmingham, and I do want to point that out. I think defensively we could have done better. The first goal, Forrest Lasso kind of stuck his challenge against that Thomas Roberts player from North Carolina. And it was unfortunate that I think that he did well in the tackle, but it's unfortunate that the ball fell where it did. And Bill Hamid probably could have done better as well. So that was one thing. The second goal, maybe the team switched off because it was so late in the game. It's very frustrating that it comes almost as the very last play of the game. They probably only added extra time onto the extra time because of North Carolina's time that they spent celebrating. And then we had to go and do the kickoff and whatever, and that added a couple more seconds to it. But the point is that was almost game done and dusted, 3 more points. So, yeah, back to the positive. Offense is looking pretty good. I think a big portion of that offense looking pretty good is how we've added to it. I think Woobs is a good player. He's up to 10 points in the league. I should have looked on what he did for the cup, but he's double digits in the league specifically. That's positive. Manuel Arteaga, back-to-back goals, or back-to-back games with goals. That's also obviously very positive. I think he also got at least 1 assist amongst those. So people are starting to fire up top. Now, where does that come from? It probably comes from a little bit deeper. Paul Marie, right back for the vast majority of his career. I don't know where he played in college, to be fair, but Paul Marie has been an incredible signing. And if the Rowdies make the playoffs at this point, a large portion of that unless he gets injured or something. A large portion of that is going to be down to Paul Marie. I think he's got three goals and 3 assists, if I'm not mistaken, already over the course of just 4 or 5 games with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Folks,
3 goals and 2 assists right now. Yeah.
3 goals and 2 assists. That's crazy numbers in 5 games. Crazy numbers in 5 games.
For a guy that we thought was going to be a right back.
I thought that he was going to fill in where Nick Moon had been playing because Nick Moon had not been starting recently.
Yeah.
Juana Sokar has been playing in there.
The guy who I thought was a striker this entire time. So up is down, left is right. The Rowdies are in 10th place when we should be in first place. But the reality is, go back to talking about Paul Marie because I freaking love this guy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what San Jose's plans are for the 2026 year. But hey, if they're not gonna extend that contract, lock that down. The Rowdies need to lock him down. Put a ring on it. Get him into the Bay Area long term. I'm talking a 2-year, 3-year contract, something like that.
Yeah.
He's already
he's already in a Bay Area in Northern California. I'm sure the Bay Area is better. So let's make it happen. Exactly.
A great way to look at it. But yeah, Paul Marie has been a very good signing. Another player that we briefly mentioned, he played more of a role in the second game just because that's the one he started. But Alex Mendez has looked pretty good so far in his time with the Rowdies. It's been, I think, only 3 games now. But he did look pretty good against North Carolina. And boy, he was unlucky to not get a goal off of a wicked shot in the game against North Carolina. Yeah. That one, I thought that was going in when I first saw it, and unfortunately, obviously, it did not. But yeah, he looks pretty good. So the other we went and we got a bunch of players, mostly in on loan. 2 players were picked up as free agents: Alex Mendez and Juana Sokar. Obviously, I think that I was probably more outwardly expectant of Alex Mendez than I was Sokar, but Sokar has been starting and he's obviously been contributing. So I think attacking wise, we're looking a lot better than we have for the vast majority of the season. That's pretty plainly obvious. I'm not really telling anybody listening to this something that they wouldn't have figured out on their own. But the other side of this thing is that the last 2 games, we did this without Lewis Hilton. And I think that we made this point. I don't know if it was you, Carlos, or if I said this somewhere previously, that like the Rowdies with and without Lewis Hilton do seem to look like a different team. And then a little more recently, I guess we've been able to paper over that a little bit better by having players who are able to help out with Danny Crisostomo and Lawrence White, who have been our presumptive central midfielders for the last couple of games. So I think that's all pretty good. Defensively, like I said, that's where we were not doing particularly well in these 2 games. And I think Bill Hamid has helped in moments. I think that he's still getting caught up with the rhythm of the game again because he was out with an injury before we signed him from Miami. So he had not played for a couple of weeks, possibly longer than that. But maybe if he continues to improve, get used to the speed of the game, all that kind of stuff again, we can build up a little bit better in the defense. And maybe that'll give us the shot that we need to actually turn this game, a game like the North Carolina one. You don't give up that goal. Maybe you don't give up either of the goals, in all honesty. And you start getting 3 points in a way that is sustainable. That's what we need. And that's going to be, obviously, that's going to be the difference here. Defense wins championships. Well, at this point, we need defense to win us a playoff spot.
Yeah. And like I've said, Regula said earlier, right? Like we need to do something here in the last 5 games of the year that we really haven't done all year, which is win a couple games back to back, if not a few games back to back, right? Like it's going to be tough. It hasn't been something that the Rowdies have done all year, right? With the exception of the, I want to say it was Indy home game and then FC Naples away, maybe. Whoever we played before Naples, we had a couple, I guess that was the one time off the top of my head I can think of. We won a back-to-back game situation. We are in desperate need of all the points we can get right now. So like I said, that's why that game against North Carolina feels so disappointing, right? Because we're 4 points out right now. Imagine being 2 points out, right? Like it's just it's unfortunate. But you rightly point out the biggest improvement that we've seen. And this is what like Dominic Cacciato was advertised to me as, right? He hasn't had, I'm sure he hasn't really had the opportunity, the time to construct the roster that he wants 100%. But you could see that we've gone out and got guys that could create something in the attack, right? Particularly in Paul Marie, who, like I said, I did not know was so apt in his attacking game. Luis Alvarez, who obviously is a great attacking threat, hasn't really lived up to the expectations I personally have for him. But again, another like sign that we're really pushing for some really creative, attacking, exciting soccer. Of course, Mendez, who we've mentioned now a couple times, who's played great soccer in these first 2 games. And you mentioned he was more of an impact in the second game. That's absolutely correct. I would agree. But he did get an assist in that first game too, in his limited minutes, which was really, really, really interesting to see. I want to say, was it on the Paul Marie goal? Looking back. Or maybe
I don't
it was.
remember offhand which one that was.
I'm trying to take a look back. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He gets his assist against Birmingham. These are signs to me that we haven't really given up on the year. And I knew that obviously because, we're making signings, we're getting a new coach. We're talking about pushing for the playoffs. Like, I get it. Like it looked like it on paper that we were still making a push for the playoffs, but you hadn't really seen it play out yet on the field. This has been exciting soccer, if nothing else, to watch, which to me as a fan is more fun to watch than a 1-0 loss or 2-0 loss. A 2-2 draw, despite, it coming at the end of the game. It sucks because you want all 3 points, but it was a fun game to watch if nothing else. More importantly, it's a golden point that we absolutely do need. You can't really afford to really take a loss in these last few games. Like, grab the point where you can get them, especially since most of them are at home. We're really just talking about this Loudoun game this weekend and the game against Rhode Island, which is going to be crucial. The other 3 are at home. So opportunities to be comfortable at home, opportunities to give the fans a show. They exist. There's 5 games here, James. Like it's possible. Like I know we've said this a lot, and it just hasn't really happened. The wins haven't really come in the amount that you want to see, but it's still here. It's still possible. We control our own destiny, really. And I'm more confident now going into this last stretch of the season, despite conceding the amount of goals that we still do concede. I'm more confident because we can play these shootout type of games, right?
I guess, yeah.
Earlier on in the year, we're losing 2-0 or 3-0. Hell, 5-0, right? Like, it was ugly. It was really ugly. At least on the back end.
The least said about that particular one, the better.
Yeah, right? Like, at least on the back end of the year, there's fight. Like, there's some dog in this team. You've seen the grit of the Rowdies multiple times throughout the back half of the year. Lots of draws that we've come back to get. A couple wins that we've come down. But, like, this game against Birmingham, 4 goals unanswered after conceding the first goal. Game against North Carolina. North Carolina opens the scoring in Al Lang. So easy to drop your head at that point, conceding 15 minutes in. A goal that was really avoidable, right, off the Asokar turnover. Nobody decides to foul the guy from North Carolina that's making that run. Like, that's a moment where you take that foul, right? There's a lot of space there. Easy to drop the head, give up. You know where you are on the table at this point in the season. But we go and get 2 goals and play a great game against North Carolina, by the way. Other than, the defensive sleepiness at the back end of the game. You've played a great game against North Carolina. You mentioned the Mendez shot, a beautiful shot. Crisostomo had a weird deflection off of a shot that I can't remember who took the shot from the top of the box, but Crisostomo took the deflection and almost knocked the ball in. There were some good looks in this game that maybe won't qualify as your big chances, right? but the boys looked like ready to fire on all cylinders. Like they're taking shots from outside the box. Woobs is ripping shots from the top of the box. That's how, I mean, he got his goal in the 82nd minute, taking a shot from just inside the box off of a tough near post angle. He ripped it. Like he's not playing out of his mind or anything, but he's got 10 goals on the year in league play. And he's doing what we've seen him do in spurts and flashes, right? Taking guys on one-on-one, like taking the ball by himself and just ripping a shot and seeing it go in. Like that's what you saw in this game against North Carolina. There's a lot of shots that we created, a lot of good-looking opportunities, 61% possession. Like we were playing our game. There's a lot of positives here. This offensive talk that we've been talking about here, it's huge for this weekend, and we'll talk about it later on. But I'll give you a quick sneak peek and a little preview. Loudoun allows a lot of goals into their net, more than the Rowdies this season, which is an interesting statistic when you see the difference in where we are in the table, right? Like they allow a lot of goals. They score a lot of goals too. And that's obviously the difference. Like they're in a lot of shootout games. A game against Loudoun where we score 3 goals doesn't necessarily guarantee you a win. And we've seen that because we just drew a game 3-3 relatively recently. But it gives you a really good chance against a team that's played pretty good soccer, really good offensive soccer, okay defensive soccer, but not really. I just think like going into these last few games of the year, these 2 performances in particular have given me, and the game before that with the 3 goals, have given me some excitement, some confidence that it's going to be possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. We're still in 10th place, James. We haven't had a great year. Like that's true. But you look at the goals we scored this past week, and they're not just like random corner kicks or like a penalty, like we scored some goals at the beginning of the year, or like a random free kick set piece or something. Like they're open play goals created by mostly Paul Marie, it feels like at this point. But it's good offensive soccer. Like there's a chance here, James. There's a chance.
I am in full agreement. It's about sorting out a couple of things, obviously, but yeah, we have made truly, I think the last 2-3 weeks, let's say, we have made some pretty great strides. And the Rowdies previously we've gone back and forth, Carlos, on which is the bigger problem at any given point between attack and defense.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a pretty good oversimplification of things anyway. But right now, because of where we are on the attacking side, we do have any type of shot. Unleashing Paul Marie, I think my one thing that I look at this team and I'm like, maybe there's one other thing that we could do. Lewis Hilton, let's say, gets back from injury and he offers exactly the same level that he has previously, sitting in front of the defense, a role that he can play on his own. He doesn't really need to have somebody next to him there. It has helped, obviously, but he doesn't need it. So let's say you just have him and you have some combination of Alex Mendez with his left foot and Paul Marie with his right foot, and they're both attacking in kind of free positions. Carlos, that's something that I think would be really, really helpful. Maybe, you have Danny Crisostomo or Lawrence Wyke in the center of the midfield, since they're probably going to be there anyway, and they can offer an extra helping hand in that area. But I think if we get Alex Mendez and Paul Marie firing, where I think the 2 of them are kind of leaning towards, that's a potential really positive outlook. And I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if they're both going to work together even, because of the roles that they play and where they would like to be on the field. So it's a lot between here and there, but it's just something to keep in mind. I think that there's some potential there.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about looking at the goals that we've conceded last week, 3 goals we conceded over 2 games. Not like a terrible number by any means, but I would like to see some more shutouts, obviously, especially with these last 5 games. But you look at all 3 goals, and they're really just like fixable mistakes, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it's easy to say that because, over the course of the 5 minutes, I can look back at the highlights. I can point out, oh yeah, like, this guy should have just been here, right? Or White should have fouled the guy running down the line. Like, it's easy to say that in these 5 minutes. I'm looking at the highlights or something. It's much easier to make one of those mistakes over the course of 90 minutes, right? Like, it's much harder to be mistake free over a 90-minute game.
Exactly.
So I get that, obviously. But you look at them and they seem so fixable. They seem so silly, right? Like, just turning off at the wrong moment against North Carolina, not making the slightly higher IQ play against in the first goal against North Carolina, Guillen in the goal against Birmingham that they score first, Guillen pushing maybe a little too far up the field, losing his position on the back line, and leaving Castellanos by himself against two North Carolina guys. Birmingham guys. Gosh, I'm confusing these games down my head. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things that if we just play a bit safer on defense, right? A bit more conservative, a bit tighter on defense, like, I think we can limit these goals too. And again, North Carolina is a really good team. They've played great soccer this year, James. I think I can I can say with a certain degree of confidence that we outplayed North Carolina in this game, which again is impressive. It's a good team, right? We created more. We maybe should have gotten one more goal than we did. And of course, we just turned off on the back end here and let them get that equalizer. So there's a ton of positives to take away here. On top of the new signings playing a really good ball, I think Casciato is going to have a really tough time selecting who his starting 11 is this weekend against Loudoun.
I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, you're looking at the attack, and Mendez played really great soccer, of course. Paul Marie is obviously going to be in the starting 11 at this point. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting questions in the midfield and the back line with who we see starting, right? Why? Because last week, like I said, there was some rotation. Castellanos goes to the bench. Then Casey goes to the bench for the second game. Wyke drops back into the back line for the second game. Boris Lasso gets a start here for the second game. So there was a bit of rotation that maybe we could have expected because there's just 2 games in a short time period. But I'm not sure for certain who was playing more consistent, better defensive soccer across both of these games, if that makes any sense. I like Wyke in the midfield. I think he's even more of an asset in the back line, right? Like, that's my opinion. I think he's solid back there. He's run, he can get back quickly. Like, I think that's important in the USL against these really quick teams. Lasso looked pretty good in this past game, based on what I've seen. Castellanos has played pretty solid defensive soccer over the past few weeks as well. And of course, we're not even mentioning Guillen, who feel like has started like every game this year. Right. There's a lot of questions to be asked back there. And in what I think is a positive manner, I think they're positive questions. We have multiple guys that have been playing pretty good. What's the right combination going to look like back there? I'm curious. We'll see against Loudoun. If I'm Casciato, I'm leaning towards a bit more speed for this game against Loudoun based on what I've seen from them. But of course, we'll talk about them in a minute. James, anything else to touch on specifically about these games?
Obviously we have to do our man of the match, but I don't have any other specific little points that I want to put in there. Yeah.
We can talk about, like, in a normal week of this show when we've scored like 2 goals and maybe it's a 2-2 draw or a 2-1 draw or something. I feel like we'd go through here and highlight each play that led to the goals. We can figure out where the defensive breakdown was.
Right, exactly.
There were 4, 8, 9 goals over these 2 games. I'd love to go through each and every goal, but I feel like we'd be here for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
At a high level, though, Manu, Arteaga getting into good form. Manu in particular, 2 goals in the last 2 games. That's really, really good from a guy who's been pretty slow this year, of course. Paul Marie on fire, scoring goals. Mendez on fire in much quicker fashion than I would have thought. High level player, assists, goals. James, man of the match time?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. I think my man of the match, we do, I'll just do mine for both games and I'll throw it over to you. I'm going to go Paul Marie as my easy man of the match for this first matchup against Birmingham. He is ridiculous. I am in shock that he's come into this squad and immediately made the impact he has made. Like I said, I thought he was a right back. I've seen the highlights from his time in MLS. I know he scored a couple of ridiculous goals, but I thought they were more one-offs than anything. But man, he looks good. He settled in rapidly. He looks happy when he's playing soccer, which I think is really, really fun to see. And he looks like he's gelled really quickly with the guys around him. Yeah, I mean, the boys were celebrating with him like he's been here for 3 years. So really, really cool to see. Obviously scoring the goals. In this one against Birmingham, he continued on to have a great game against North Carolina, but this is the Birmingham man of the match. My second man of the match for the game against North Carolina is Manuel Arteaga. This is purely off the fact that he scored back-to-back goals now. And, of course, he got the all-important equalizer in this one to really get the guys back into it. Manu plays with a ridiculous amount of fire, which I think is so important in these last 5 games. You need to have that attitude. You need to have that extra bit of courage, like the intangibles to push you over the line. I think you see that a lot from him in any game he plays, but particularly in this game against North Carolina where you really needed that veteran kind of lead by example moment. I think you saw that from him. Really fiery play to score the goal, and of course had a decent game overall, but most importantly scored the equalizer. James, throw it over to you.
Yes, well, it was kind of hard to differentiate here because I think that you are already doing Paul Marie. It's very hard to top that. So the reason that I did not go with Paul Marie for man of the match in the first game, despite his performance, was one statistical thing, and I want to pull that up real fast. The Rowdies obviously got a 4-1 win, so lots of goals there, everything going well on the attacking side. However, on the defensive side of things, one player also stood out just a little bit more, and that was Manuel Arteaga. He had not only a goal and an assist, but it was on the defensive side of things that I wanted to point out. He had 6 defensive contributions. Wow. That's pretty good for a striker. So that is the reason that I did not go with Paul Marie, even though he stood out. 4 recoveries for Manuel Arteaga in this game versus Birmingham Legion. So fantastic stuff there. I really liked that. Gotta point out the really good plays when you see them there. And on the other side of things, I went with a little bit more of a stat side on the match versus North Carolina. And I did not go with the person that I've written down. I'll change that. But the name that I went with was Alex Mendez. It was his first start for the team, and he did really well. Not only did he have that one shot that like I said, I thought that was going in the first time I saw it, but Alex Mendez also contributed the most chances created of the whole game with 6. Pretty good again. So I like where that's headed. I think that he's gonna create some chances that obviously turn into goals coming up here, and that's what we need. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
He's looked very comfortable very quickly with this team, which is so incredibly important when he came into the squad with 7 games left in the year, 7 very important games left in the year.
Every one of them, exactly.
Yeah, so he came in and he immediately got comfortable with this team. He got the start in his second appearance. Awesome. And looked really good in the process. One more thing I'll mention on Manu, since you mentioned him for the first game as your man of the match. Just because we didn't talk about each goal individually, I don't want this to go overlooked. I talked about veteran leadership, fiery moment, fiery attitude, lead by example, doing the intangibles and going the extra mile with effort. The goal he assisted on Paul Marie, I don't know if you recall this. This is the 89th minute goal to close out the game here. Birmingham thinks the ball. Birmingham thinks it should have been a foul. So they kind of slow down for a second. Ball's right along the touch line. And Manu chases it down. Yeah. Really bodies off, the North Carolina defender, and does an insane amount of work to not only win the ball, but just do enough to tap it over to Paul Marie, who finishes with a beautiful, nice touch to get his goal of the game. again, Arteaga, a ridiculous amount of effort here, ridiculous amount of just dog. Like I love Manu for a variety of reasons. I think he's just an awesome striker. Obviously, he hasn't had the year that we've wanted him to have, but I think that shows a lot about where he is. I don't know, as a player, as a striker, dog, right? Just putting all that effort in. It doesn't go unnoticed to me in particular as we're watching like these guys make a push to make something out of the season that has felt like a throwaway for a lot of the year. So
yeah, I think that's good to highlight. Like,
yeah,
the effort, the confidence, like I mentioned earlier, is very important. Another thing that you need, and one feeds the other. It goes both ways, but you need that confidence, and you also need just some internal drive.
Grit,
You need some grit. You need some like, I'm not letting this play go. That's really what you need.
Yeah. Every play is mattering in these last 5 games. Every goal matters. We concede. The reality is we concede goals, James. So we do. We just don't get a lot of shutouts. Every play in the attack in particular matters because we're going to need all the goals we can get in these last 5 games. Inevitably, we're going to concede some goals. That's what we've done this year. So that effort is just so – it's beautiful. Absolute dog. Shout out Manuel Arteaga. James, let's jump ahead because we still have a lot to talk about. We're already at the 51-minute mark. We gotta speed through all this. Despite how deep into this episode we are, I'm still gonna throw a shameless plug in here and tell you that if you haven't checked out all the cool designs over at shop.rblrsports.com, you really should go check them out. There is awesome line of products over there, some cool shirts, some cool merch that you can get to support this podcast.
I'm on the website right now. I agree.
Yeah, there's gear for your Rowdies, your Rays, your Bucks, your Lightning, your Sun. Go check them out. Go check out the fun designs that have been cooked up, and you can support this podcast just a little bit more by purchasing some cool gear over at shop.rblrsports.com. James, I'm really excited personally for this game this weekend. It's against Loudoun United. It's a team that has been awful for a very long time, and it's a team that's not awful anymore, at least this year. They're playing decent soccer. They're conceding a lot of goals, but they score at a ridiculous pace. They're a fast team. They're young, and they look good. James, Loudoun United versus the Tampa Bay Rowdies this Sunday, not Saturday, your Sunday evening football, let's say, at 5 p.m. And I'm so excited because, like I said, it's down the road from me. Not down the road. It's like an hour metro ride away, but I'm super excited to get there and support this team. It's always nice when your hometown team comes up to your neck of the woods and you get to see them play. Let's hopefully some great ball and hopefully a win. James, Loudoun is 12 points ahead. They're in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. They've been in a mixed run of form recently. What can you tell us about this Loudoun United squad and what they've been doing this year?
Absolutely. Well, as you said, they are ahead of us right now. They're doing pretty well in the East. The form recently, though, has been a little bit more mixed. So I don't think that this is a game where we're going in and we are the underdogs in terms of where we are on the table. I really don't think at the moment that we're looking at this and we're like, boy, it's going to take the best performance. We can get this. We can get these 3 points. We can put this together if we get all of the right, all of the right steps in order, obviously. But this is not an unwinnable thing. This is not something that's extremely hard to get. Yeah. We'll do this if we get our ducks in order, and we'll set it all up. So let's get into the starting lineup here. They usually play in a 4-2-3-1. Hugo Faru in net. He has been there all season, mainstay, and that is almost certain to not change this weekend. Keegan Tingy, Yanni Lehrman, Garrison Tubbs, and Kwame Awuo were the back 4 for the last game. I do want to point out Robbie Dambrot is usually one of those center backs. Tubbs has come in on loan from DC United, with which I guess they still have some type of relationship. We're not totally sure the depths and ins and outs, but Tubbs is probably a better player than Robbie Dambrot. And so if he stays and he is still there on loan, then he will start and Dambrot will not. That's what I'm expecting. Their recent midfield has been Drew Skundrich and Tommy McCabe, two USL veterans. Tommy McCabe has been with Loudon for years at this point. It's just he's a part of that club. And then an attacking unit of Zach Ryan, Florian Velo, and Ben Mines behind up top, Kimi Ordonez. Kimi Ordonez is a former youth player for FC Cincinnati. He did not quite make the grade at Cincy, and he's been trying to find where he's going to go. He ended up in Moldova for a little bit. If anybody knows the name, Chisinau. They are the Moldovan club that played against Real Madrid a couple of seasons ago. Anyway, he wasn't there for that, but they're in a weird state right now. He was there for like half a year. He's back in the States, and so he's playing for Loudon United. Not only is he playing for Loudon United, by the way, he's doing extremely well. So I'm going to get to that in a bit too. Ben Mines has been starting on the left as opposed to their usual and their top scorer, Abdelatif Abukora. Abukora was not here for the last several games at this point, like at least 4 that I saw. If I'm not, I think I'm for mixing this up, but Abukora was not there for the last 4 games for sure. So he will probably not be available this weekend. If he is, then he will probably just take up his usual position on the left wing. Otherwise, we will continue to see Ben Mines starting there. And he's not as good a player as Abukora. And I think Abukora has bigger things than the USL in his future because he's 21 years old right now, and he's doing this well. So I expect to see if he doesn't move up to MLS, in all honesty, I would bet a good deal of money on him ending up in one of the leagues in the Middle East right now, because there's a lot of money flowing around there, and he is an Egyptian youth international. Somebody's going to snap him up. That's my prediction. Yeah. So continuing on, Abukora is leading with 11 goals. I think 13 if you count the cup competitions all year. And Kimi Ordonez has 4. Zach Ryan, the usual right winger, has 5. So even if Abukora is not available, we will have to keep an eye on Kimi Ordonez. Like I said, he has only joined the team relatively recently. He was not here over the course of the whole season. He's got 4 goals in, let's say, a month, 2 months time. He's doing pretty well. He's going to be dangerous, and he's going to be somebody we have to keep an eye out on. And he's not usually a striker, I'll point that out, but he seems to be doing pretty well in this role. Yeah. What are you going to say? What were the other points? Okay, there we go. 8 assists for Florian Velo. If you remember that name, he was a long-time player for the New York Red Bulls too. He was also with Miami, and now he's with Loudon. So he's been kind of a thorn in our side for ages. A thorn, as opposed to any other word that I would use to describe Florian Velo. Ben Mines on the other side, somebody that I was saying is not as good as Abukora, and he's not, but he does have 7 assists. So again, all of these players have some danger to them. Zach Ryan and Velo and Ben Mines, they know how to combine, and especially with the players behind them, obviously. But they also know how to combine with Kimi Ordonez. So all of that to say, this is still an attacking, a potent attacking unit. Kwame Awua on the left back, and Keegan Tingy as the right back. Keegan Tingy is going to sit back a lot more than Awua will, but Awua will contribute to the attacking side as well. The last thing I wanted to highlight was that Bolu Akinyote has also very recently signed for the team. That is a big pickup from Miami, because Bolu Akinyote is probably better than Miami, as they have sunk back down to the bottom of the table. He has played with Loudon previously, and so he's back there again. I don't know if he will end up starting right now over McCabe or Skundrich, but he can offer not only some help in the center of the midfield, but he can offer some help on the back line as well. Those are all the big highlights that I really wanted to point to. And those are the players that we need to keep an eye out on effectively. But again, I go back to this one more time. I think that the Rowdies can win this game if we do everything that we're supposed to. We don't give up any stupid goals, any dumb mistakes like that. Yeah. That's something that we'll need to work on for sure. But this is a winnable game. Loudon United may be 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They are not in the same league as Charleston and Louisville City. Those might be out of our hand right now. Maybe any given Sunday, sure. But this given Sunday, we should be beating Loudon United, especially if we have any hope of making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like we mentioned that this Loudon squad's in 3rd place, and they're certainly playing better soccer than they have for the last, I don't know, many years. But there is a significant gap between second and third place, both talent-wise and also just on the points, right? Charleston has 58 points. Loudoun has 54 versus 38. And like I've said, they've allowed 42 goals on the year. The Rowdies have allowed 40. And we know how much we've struggled on the back line. Like, there's an opportunity here for what might be a shootout. But we've seen maybe some improvement from our back line. We've seen some good performances from individuals on the back line. Like you say, I know there's not really much of a gap. Certainly not one in Loudoun United's favor in talent on paper on the field, right? Looking at the names that Loudoun has, there's certainly some good players in here. You mentioned, what's his name? Abu Kora. He certainly played some great soccer for them. He has 11 goals on the year, like you said. I'll note on him that he actually played some 20 minutes or so this past week against Phoenix Rising. So maybe coming back from an injury of some sort, which is why he would have missed those few games in between appearances. I mean, he seems to be an incredible threat, like you said. Probably has eyes set on some big money and some bigger clubs. So we're hoping maybe we don't see too much of him this weekend. But you look at the names that they have, like I said, scoring a lot of goals, but it doesn't feel like this is a squad that is a third place Eastern Conference team, just on paper. And I'm not really afraid of saying that, right? It's not like I don't know, unless some Loudoun player sees this and uses it as bulletin board material and says hey, look at these guys. I don't know.
Bulletin board material.
I mean, I don't care, whatever. I can't imagine some Loudoun players going to find this podcast. That being said, it's a good team. Played great soccer, multiple points in the year. Don't think the last few games are their best soccer, right? You look at their last few mixed bag of results. It includes a 2-2 draw against Phoenix last weekend. It includes a 5-2 loss at home to San Antonio FC. I'll note that all 5 of those goals that they conceded did come after an early red card in the 45th minute. So all 5 goals for San Antonio come in the second half there, but still 5 goals conceded. You go back a couple weeks before then, they concede 4 goals against Charleston, away to Charleston. There's a lot of weaknesses here that this squad has that I'm hoping we are able to capitalize on.
Exactly. I think that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, despite them being in third place. It's a must-win game, like every game feels like at this point. I'm using that term loosely just because all 5 of these games feel like must-win games. I feel like it's at least a must-draw game, if nothing else. You need every point you can get. We will closely be watching the results of Indy 11, of course, Rhode Island this weekend, who we obviously need to drop points. But the reality is, if you're the Tampa Bay Rowdies, like I said, you really do control your own destiny. Go out there and win this game. Put yourself in a position to overtake Rhode Island when we play them in a couple of weeks. Of course, that game's going to really decide everything, right? Even if we put ourselves in a position to succeed over the next 2 weeks, that game against Rhode Island will be everything, right? But it starts with this game against Loudoun. Don't look ahead too far or anything, right? Start with this one game, and you go get the win, and you're in business. So, James, like you said, I think I agree with you. I feel pretty good. I think there's a really good opportunity here to take advantage of, especially the defensive situation in Loudoun, and hopefully win what I hope is not an exciting game. I hope we go out there and win 3-0, and it's just comfortable the whole way. The reality is I think it'll be a much tighter affair, and we'll see how that actually plays out. But, yeah, there's an opportunity here, James. I really do think that. I know we've been looking ahead at the schedule and thinking, okay, well, you have to at least win your home games, and maybe make a really, really good performance, in particular if you need it against Rhode Island in a couple of weeks. I think some people have overlooked this Loudoun game just because Loudoun is in third place, but I really don't think that implies a Loudoun win here, like just guaranteed a Loudoun win or anything. You know what I mean? I think we're really going to see what that looks like this Saturday or Sunday. Sorry. So Sunday evening, 5 p.m. Get your Sunday evening football in after the Bucks game at 1 in between Sunday night football later in the night. It's going to be good soccer. I do think that. And I'm hoping it's not a high-scoring affair for both teams, but I think you could expect something like that. Maybe that's hinting to my prediction. James, anything you want to touch on before we jump into the predictions here?
I'm ready to go. I think that I know where I'm leaning right now.
James, give us your prediction then.
All right. So I do believe that they will score, and it might even be Loudoun United scoring first. We have obviously seen that a number of times recently.
Yeah.
But I don't think that will be the end of the game. I don't think that will be the whole story here. I am expecting that we get a 3-1 win versus Loudoun United. Oh, have I taken it away?
So interestingly enough, I was going to say we score 3 goals. Eureka, who, if you're listening to this, you won't know Eureka's prediction yet, but Eureka in our chat just stole what was going to be my initial prediction. And then James stole what was going to be my backup prediction. So for the sake of differentiating myself from the crowd here, I'm going to say we score 4 goals.
Oh, I thought you were going to take the 3-0 then. Okay.
No, because I don't think it's going to be a shutout for us, James. Like, realistically, I don't think that. I think it's more likely we score 4 goals than it is that we don't concede any goals. And I think it sounds like a high number, but I think that's realistic, considering where we've been, considering where Loudoun is defensively. I do think Loudoun does get on the score sheet, though. I feel like this game ends up 4-2. Like I said, high-scoring affair. Loudoun can definitely put some goals in the net here. I'm feeling a big Hamid performance here.
Okay.
I'm thinking we're winning 3-2 late-ish in the game, and Hamid needs to make a big save and make some really, really impressive one-on-one save off a breakaway or something.
Bill Hamid has also played for Loudoun in the past, right?
Did he? I know. I certainly played for DC United, obviously. I don't know if he ever had some moments in Loudoun. But you're right. Coming home to an area that he
never once. I am totally wrong.
Certainly familiar with Loudoun United. He's coming home to DMV. He's from this area. I'm hoping that means he's very comfortable playing against Loudoun United in a stadium where, like you said, maybe he hasn't played a full game for Loudoun, but he must have been around the area, knows the team, knows the club. Like you said, like we've talked about before, DC United legend. So I think he'll be very comfortable here in this area. Maybe I just thought about that. I'm going to be at this game with a bunch of family and some friends. Maybe we see some Bill Hamid family as well. And we have a good contingent of Rowdies fans in the stadium. James, that's my prediction. I'm going to say 4-2. You're saying 3-1. Eureka is going with a 3-2 win, which, like I said, was going to be my original prediction. So if Eureka gets his points for this prediction, I'm going to take like half points or something, is what I'm going to say now. But no, I feel like a 4-2 result is also very reasonable. Obviously, I hope we get the shutout, James. I would have liked to go with a 3-0 result, but I think 4-2 is more likely than 3-0 based on where we are this year and the amount of silly mistakes we've had. But of course, like I said, they're fixable. They're silly. I think it's possible that we can fix them for this weekend. I just don't know if 1 week to the next we'll be able to do it, especially against a team that scores as many goals as Loudoun has this year. 41 goals on the year for Loudoun. Okay. James, anything else to mention on this Loudoun United matchup before we jump into extra time?
No, I think that we have covered this one as best we can, and let's do our extra time because there's a good bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. James, I'll start off with what I've thrown in here, just because I think it's pretty big. It's timely. It was announced this afternoon. First reported, at least from I saw it. Oh my God, I'm so tired, James. I'm so hungry. I need dinner. Like, whatever. Mark Topkin from the Tampa Bay Times, I saw him put this report out that the Major League Baseball owners unanimously approved the sale of the Tampa Bay Rays to the Zalupski Group. Of course, Zalupski is a Jacksonville-based realty guy or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point is, the Rays are being sold to this guy and this guy's group, the Zalupski group, out of Jacksonville, Florida. Initially, I will say, I thought that meant the Rays were moving to Jacksonville, so I got a little scared when I heard the news of him being involved with this, but months ago. Sticking around the area, hopefully, bright future for the Rays in Tampa. Personally, I would like it in Tampa, but regardless, personally, it doesn't matter. Bright future in Tampa Bay. More importantly, for the sake of this podcast, James, is whatever the Rowdies implications are, right? It's a Rowdies podcast. The consensus, though, right now is that we don't know what the implications actually are. Obviously, this means that the Rowdies are going to be a part of this under this ownership. Who knows what that means for front office, for staff, for stadiums, right? Who knows where the Rowdies will be playing in 5, 6, 7 years. Hopefully it's positive things. It seems like this ownership group is coming into the Tampa Bay area with a lot of money, a lot of desire to invest in the Rays. I'm curious how much that means they're wanting to invest, if at all, in the Rowdies, James.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less familiar, obviously, with the baseball background of things, but at this point, I don't have too much to go on other than being hopeful, and I think that there's plenty of reason to be hopeful. Like you said, they do seem to be bringing in a good deal of money with them, and if their goal is to, let's say, revitalize the Rays or whatever word you want to take because of the whatever word you want to use because of what happened with the stadium and what has happened since the storm with the stadium. All of that obviously has been pretty rough to see. So I think that understand the link between the city and the Rowdies as well, you would hope. And maybe that will portend good things for us here.
Yeah. We'll see. I think the biggest thing for me is obviously like the stadium situation. We've talked a lot about Al Lang and whether we'd stay there, and who knew if it was getting demolished and becoming an amphitheater as part of some St. Pete like master development plan. No clue. There's a lot of questions. I think there's more questions than answers, particularly on the Rowdies side. There's a ton of questions on the Rays side. I think even more so on the Rowdies side. So we'll see. I mean, we can only wait and see what happens and what is actually in store for the Rowdies with the Zalupski group. Patrick Zalupski, real estate developer based out of Jacksonville, Florida. We wait and see, James. That's all we can do.
That's all we can do.
James, you threw in some stuff in here about some broader happenings in the United Soccer League. What about this potential incident in Hartford and Pittsburgh?
Yeah, this one was not so good. So I think it was on Saturday, but Hartford versus Pittsburgh, ultimately the game was going on. Pittsburgh is already winning, and that's the way that it finished. But before the game was over, I think in the 90th plus 2 minutes, but there was still time left before the actual final whistle would be blown. All the Hartford players walked off the field, seemingly in protest, seemingly of something verbal, let's say. We don't know many of the details at this point. It is under investigation. So what was alleged to have been said, to whom, by whom, all that stuff, I really don't have that information. But all of the players walked off before the final whistle, and the referee at that point did blow for full time. So that's where we are. I don't know. I've already said I don't know the details, so there's no point in speculation, obviously. We hope that there will be a full investigation, all that good stuff. And ultimately, if something untoward went on here, I just hope that it gets punished such that players in the future think about that and go, maybe I shouldn't do the thing that everybody, I was about to say something, I was about to say the F word, but maybe in the future, players who think of something that everybody knows that they shouldn't do anyway, they'll be like, well, okay, I won't do that thing that everybody knows I shouldn't do anyway.
There you go. Yeah, I saw something like that on Twitter. I want to say I saw like a statement from Riverhounds. I didn't pay much attention to it. I didn't realize what it was actually about. yeah, so like you said, seems like many more questions and answers on that front as well. Keep an eye on that. I think it's going to be really, really interesting and telling about how USL handles a situation like that. Certainly, we've seen situations like this in the past, rather close to home potentially, and we've seen questionable handlings on the United Soccer League front. So we'll see what happens here. More interesting, more bright news, happy news, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. This is up in the air for me, James. Miami FC announcing that it's going to be joining this sports performance hub development in Homestead, Florida, which includes a 15,000 person stadium on top of a professional training academy, a youth boarding school, public sports and recreation facilities, and a sports-themed hotel that overlooks this new stadium in Homestead, Florida. If you're not familiar with South Florida, Homestead is about as south as you can go in the Miami metropolitan area before you hit the southern part of like the Glades Preservation, and you start to get to the Keys down there. It's a large and growing suburban community over there in Homestead, Florida. I have some family that lives over there, and they've lived over there for a long time. Used to be just farmland, large. There still is a really, really large immigrant community, very large immigrant Mexican community down there in Homestead, Florida. That's continuing to grow. A lot of development happening down there, and I think this is indicative of that. What do we think about this? I've said before that the only way seemingly for Miami FC to survive in what's frankly a really horrible Miami sports scene. There's not a great fan culture down there just around supporting their teams, particularly when Inter Miami exists at the moment. Even though they're not in Miami, that's what people in Miami care about is Messi and Inter Miami. I think that'll fade away when Messi leaves really rapidly. So I don't think that'll leave Inter Miami in a great spot with fan support. I think it'll continue to leave Miami FC in a horrible spot with fan support. I think this is honestly, for me, looks like a shot in the dark to see if something sticks here for Miami FC. Let's see what happens in Homestead kind of thing. Let's see if they can become Homestead's team under the name Miami FC. Honestly, why not? Like, they're not getting any crowds at Pitbull Stadium, right? And FIU. If you're a Miami FC owner and you're looking at what's happening, you needed to make some sort of dramatic move. Something like this is really the only thing I see potentially being the answer. I mean, I don't know if it will be, but I think you needed to do something rather dramatic and move it into a community that's far enough away from Miami to the point where they might not want to commute into Miami for their sports. But certainly a part of that Miami metropolitan area. I think this is honestly a pretty interesting middle ground in a place, like I said, that's far enough to maybe build their fan base very much in Homestead. It'll be really cool, James, honestly. The stadium looks really nice. If it goes well, and I hope it does, I think they have a really interesting future. But a lot of questions there as well. Who knows if it'll be a stable, successful endeavor. But like I've said, I think it's a dramatic move that was potentially needed for this club to have any sort of chance at long-term survival and any sort of energy around it. So interesting stuff. We'll see how it plays out. I always have my doubts about whether these types of stadiums and ambitious projects will actually come to fruition. So we'll see if it even gets built. But yeah, maybe high expectations if it does. I'm really curious to see, James. Honestly, I'm more curious than anything, and I have a lot of questions. But there's Miami FC is nothing right now. This is trying to do something to make it something. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've stated before that if this were any other country other than the U.S. with the system that we have and the sports that we have, which is like a big four sports that doesn't include soccer, you could probably build multiple professional level men's and women's teams in Miami and then in the suburbs. And I don't know how many that would ultimately be, but if you look at, let's say, an area like London and all the clubs that they have, we do not have that. We do not have that set up. So that's the reality of where we are in the US, and we need to keep that in mind, whether or not something is viable. And as Carlos said, this is as close as they can get probably to creating any type of future for themselves. And I hope that it works out, because I don't want to see any team go away that has existed. But yeah, we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah. I think it could be really exciting, but like you said, we're not London. Like, we don't have a fan culture where you can have so many teams in one city. There's not familial, cultural, neighborhood roots people associate with Miami FC, and
there just is not.
It doesn't exist, right? Maybe, and I think this is a long-term play. Maybe you build that in Homestead, though, right? Maybe they become Homestead's team. It's a really big, it's a rapidly growing suburban area, with a lot of development, and a lot of people moving down there. Sure, why not? I think it could be really interesting.
You got to try it. You got to give it a shot. The last thing is that Memphis is actually getting a soccer team again. Unfortunately, Memphis 901 folded, as we have spoken about in the past. However, Memphis FC now is moving into the USL League 2 for 2026. So what that means for the future, I'm not entirely sure at this point, but it's just good that a team is back in the Memphis area. Like I just said, I hate when teams fold. It's not good for American soccer. Maybe this is a little bright spot. Definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was associated with 901 when I saw that announcement initially, but if nothing else, good for the Miami. I'm still thinking about Miami. Memphis fans to have a team to rally around. It sucks when a whole city is kind of devoid of soccer like that, kind of just stripped away from their team out of what seemingly felt like nowhere in Memphis 901 situation. They weren't drawing huge crowds, but they had a consistent 6,000 average attendance, right? And it's not like there's another team in their area to support. So I'm glad they have at least something going for them with some summer ball in League 2.
And if it can build into something a little bit bigger, all the better.
Definitely. Just if you make it back to USL Championship or League 1, I hope it's not in that baseball stadium that they were playing at. That was awful. Okay, James, I think that's everything we've needed to talk about. We've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. 2 games, a big game this upcoming weekend on Sunday evening, not Saturday at 7:30 like every game usually is. Sunday evening at 5 p.m. against Loudoun United. James, this is a good time for me to plug my social media. If you're coming up here by any chance, if you're making the trip to Loudoun, or if you live in the Arlington or DC area and you're going to the game, let me know. I haven't bought my tickets yet, but I'll see you around the stadium. Looking for spots to go to before the game in the Leesburg area. I've never actually been into downtown Leesburg, so I'm going to go explore that. If you're going to the game, let me know. Send me a message on Twitter at CarlosTPA10 on Twitter. We can talk about this game this weekend, and of course the Rowdies for the rest of the season as well. James, where can people follow you on social media?
If you would like to get at me, I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K.
Absolutely. And of course, follow the podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere and everywhere that you can get social media. The RBLR family is probably there. At RBLR Sports. Use hashtag AskRBLR, especially on Twitter, to send us your questions, send us things to talk about, what's on your mind as we approach, especially these last 5 games of the year. Of course, like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. RBLR is probably there too, James.
That's right. And with 4 points out of 6 possible, hopefully 3 points coming up this weekend. Come on, you Rowdies.
I feel it.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.